Hi, I'm Francesca and I'm delighted to welcome from Los Angeles, I believe, filmmaker Jessica M. Thompson to our Rialto Channel podcast today. Hi, Jessica. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Now, I am right, aren't I? You are based in Los Angeles at the moment, but originally from Australia. Is that correct?
Yes, originally from Sydney. I've been living in America for 8.5 years. But, you know, just so you know, tomorrow I'm flying back to Australia to film a TV series down there for 6 months. So, you know, I'm a bit of a world citizen.
Oh, how exciting. Can you tell me anything about the telly series, or is that all very secret?
Yeah, I can actually. I think it's all safe to talk about now. It's actually with the producers from Seesaw Films who did The King's Speech and Lion and Top of the Lake and a bunch of other amazing things. And it's actually about three family members in a dysfunctional family dealing with the end of life. But it's a dark comedy. So it's a great script by Samantha Strauss.
And an Australian doing a dark comedy. I would have never have thought.
I know. We've got to keep it, real. Got to keep it within the cliche.
Hey, look, we're here to discuss your debut narrative feature. It's called The Light of the Moon, and it's an extraordinary film that explores the aftermath of a rape and how it impacts on the victim, and it affects their day-to-day life and their relationships. And the film premiered at the South by Southwest Festival last year, and I'm not surprised it won the Audience Award for Best Narrative Feature. How exciting was that?
It was pretty amazing, to be honest, because South by Southwest in Austin, Texas is a bit of an edgy festival. It's been running for over 30 years. And typically they give the Audience Award winner to maybe more comedies or actions or things like that. And, although Bonnie, the protagonist in my film, definitely deals with rape using comedy, using humor as an outlet, I definitely think it's more of a darker film. So I just really wasn't expecting it, so much so that I was actually in another film. I was just watching another movie when my phone started blowing up, and I was like, oh, gosh, better leave. And I just couldn't believe it, honestly. I Skyped my mum back in Australia. I think it was 3 a.m. there. She thought, the worst. I was in hospital or something. And I was like, I won the award. I couldn't believe it. So, yeah, it was thrilling, and the audiences there were so responsive, and I'm so glad that a film like this made such an impact.
Well, I think, it has arrived at the perfect time, this film, hasn't it, Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, I thought when I started writing the film, 2.5 years ago, it was just after a big case in New York at Columbia University where Emma Salkovich carried her mattress around on campus, the mattress that she'd been raped on, and that no one in the administration at Columbia University acknowledged, and nothing happened to the man that did it to her, to the student. And so she decided as an art performance piece to carry her mattress and she did it for 2 years, and she even carried it on her graduation day. So when I started writing it, I felt like it was already relevant. And then, of course, literally when we released the film and in New York City, when we had our world premiere there in the theaters, it was the week after Harvey Weinstein, all that news had broke, and the Me Too movement had started. So yes, I really do think it's time, and I think that the world was ready for these kind of conversations.
No, definitely. The one thing that strikes me about when you see rape portrayed in film and television is it's often portrayed in two different ways. Either the victim sort of falls apart and unravels, or they sort of find the energy to avenge their assailant. Yeah. It's always these sort of two options. And what I just found so remarkable about this film was I felt like I knew Bonnie. I was watching her going, yeah, this is how someone realistically must feel and must try to deal with a situation like this.
Yeah, and I think, the reason why we've seen only those two portrayals of rape is because storytellers have mostly been white males, and they're trying to imagine what this would be like. I mean, even so, I remember watching in, PDHPE in Year 10, The Accused with Jodie Foster, which she won an Oscar for and was a fine performance, but it was very much a masculine interpretation of that story. Even the way the rape scene was filmed was very sexualized, which I really remember even at the time being disturbed by. And so I just knew that after having, experienced harassment myself, and my several friends experiencing assault, and hearing their stories, I just knew that there was a different story that needed to be told, and I felt, I felt like I could possibly be the one to tell it. And as a as to make sure, as my artistic integrity is very important to me, and being honest and truthful, I actually went to many rape crisis centres, and I spoke to a lot of victims and survivors, over 30, and I spoke to lots of nurses and doctors and first responders and social workers, because I really wanted to make sure I was telling the story accurately. So, yeah.
And what you also notice is that you're not afraid to pose the kind of questions that that you're naturally quite curious about, but you would never ask someone. You would never ask somebody, who had been raped how their intimacy is now with their current partner or something like that, and yet you take us into the bedroom and you take us through those moments, and in a way it's very intimate and it's very moving. But I didn't find it awkward to watch.
Mhm. Well, that's great. No, I think some people do, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. Maybe it can be awkward.
But I wouldn't want people to be.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm just I wouldn't want people to be afraid of sort of hearing the subject matter and going, well, that sounds very dark. I feel like it's actually a very accessible film.
Yeah, that was very important to me, because I think we have this idea that, once this has happened to someone, and we've got to remember that it's the current statistics say 1 in 5 women will go through this in her lifetime, and we're really not talking about it as much as we should, and we're really not talking about what happens afterwards in the aftermath and recovery. And we kind of assume that people stop being sexual or stop being intimate, and that also they lose their sense of humor, which is not true. Just because you've had this happen to you doesn't mean that you suddenly completely change. Of course, your life it has its gravity, and it's like a gravitational wave, and it goes through, as you'll see watching Bonnie. It impacts her, even though she's trying so hard to pretend and deny that it has any impact on her. But yeah, I really wanted it to be accessible, and it's hard. It's always hard to, kind of sell in inverted commas a movie like this. But anyone who has gone to see it, especially a lot of men who have gone to see it to support their girlfriends or their wives, or their sisters, said I was so impressed at how watchable the film is, how he's like, it's easy to say, but I enjoyed watching it. I felt like I learned, and that was something that I was trying to accomplish. So I'm glad that it landed.
Now, Bonnie and Matt, performed by Stephanie Beatrice. Is that Beatrice?
Beatrice, yeah.
Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I didn't recognise her at first.
I know, right? I think anyone who's, she's made a big splash, especially recently. Her character came out as bi on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she is also bi herself. And I think that's, had a very big, powerful impact on LGBT youth and people who love that show, and people just cannot believe, because her voice is different. And I know Brooklyn Nine-Nine is really popular in New Zealand and Australia, so I really encourage fans of the show to watch it, because you'll not believe the depth of her performance, and she is one of the most incredible actors, and I can't wait to see what she does after Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, no, totally. I mean, you found your Bonnie there, didn't you? I was just so impressed. I just thought she was a whole different actress. And I thought that Michael Stahl-David as Matt, as her partner, he also presented us with a sympathetic character. And, you kept the balance so well between them. You understand both of their perspectives. It's a very fair film. But the two of them together, once they sort of get into this film, and it is essentially a relationship drama, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I really wanted to have that perspective as well. I think it's very easy for us to make the boyfriend character a villain, and that's not at all the case. But I think also he has the reaction that I think a lot of loved ones have, and I have had in the past when it's happened to a friend of mine, something like this, is that you kind of coddle and you want to protect, and you want to, kind of basically cover them in hugs and kisses and protect them, and that's not actually maybe the best thing. It's a lot of the, research shows that victims need to feel empowered again, and need to, even if they're making the wrong decisions, that it needs to be their decisions, and that's a big thing, is because power has been taken away. And so even though he is a sympathetic character, he can't do anything right, unfortunately. And I just love their chemistry together was fantastic. And, we did that by creating a lot of trust, and we had one whole week of rehearsals, which is very rare in the film industry. And we, I made sure that we all trusted each other, and that they trusted each other to go and felt like comfortable around each other. I think if you like the person that you're working with, then that natural performance comes out more easily. So I just made sure we had plenty of time in the rehearsal room and getting to know one another, that they felt comfortable.
And how did you and your cinematographer decide when to go close, when to pull back? You know, you give your actors a lovely amount of time to work things out in scenes. How did you work with Autumn Eklund about that?
Yeah, so Autumn and I met on a documentary shoot a couple of years before The Light of the Moon, and I knew immediately she was the second camera operator. Marisa Alberti, Osborne for the wrestler, was the head operator for Love Marilyn, and she was the lead camera operator. And as soon as I met her, I was like, oh, this is someone I want to work with. You know, as you probably know, it's very dire in the cinematography world. There's very few women. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should say there's a lot of women cinematographers, but they're not getting the representation they deserve. So if we think it's bad in directing, you know, in director's shoes, which is around 7% at the moment, you know, women cinematographers average around 4% of movies. So I knew that I wanted to shoot this film from a women's perspective, and I don't think as much as you get the most liberal, heart-warming, you know, soft man to even as a cinematographer, he can't help but have a gaze that is masculine. So I knew that was the first step. And then we spoke about it a lot, and that we didn't want to sexualize anything, that we wanted to allow the actors to kind of have the stage and to allow their performances to speak for themselves. And we decided that, especially with the rape scene, with the sex scenes, things like that, you know, that it was very easy for us to make those decisions to stay close, because I hadn't seen that done before, you know, stay close on Stephanie or Bonnie, the character's face, because it felt like that's whose perspective I wanted to tell. I didn't want to tell the rapist perspective, which quite often happens if you actually look at Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Kill Bill. The camera often goes into the rapist perspective, and I don't know if that's healthy for society to have, you know, to see it like that. Who are we empathizing with? So, to be honest, a lot of that was natural instinct, but we did discuss those scenes in particular in depth in advance and made sure that we were on the same page. And luckily, Autumn and I seemed to have a synergy on set that we kind of often communicated without even speaking, and she would know exactly when I wanted her to kind of move in and things like that. And it was, just one of those sets where everyone is on the same page, which is always beautiful.
And I love the way in post you often muffled the sound. You sort of took us right into Bonnie as the world's going on around her, and yet you get this, you know, by taking that sound away, you kind of you were there with her, weren't you?
Yeah, that was actually through my research. That wasn't originally, you know, what I was thinking, but through my research, a lot of the women that I spoke to said that the natural instinct is to pull yourself out of the moment, and so you kind of do have this, you've probably heard, like a surreal out-of-body experience where you feel like you're looking above yourself. And they said that they would do that by focusing their ears on things. So, like, you know, for instance, the dripping of a tap or the hissing, and that was it's a survival mechanism that we almost can't control. And so once I heard, you know, from many of the survivors that I spoke to in the research while writing the film, once I heard that was a common concept and that many of them did that just naturally, I thought that I should incorporate that into the film. And that's kind of where I worked with Darren Hallinan, the sound designer, for a long time on that scene to make it just right, and he did an incredible job with that.
Definitely. And you got yourself a little cameo as well. I like the fact that you didn't just write this and direct it, and more likely produce it and edit it, and but you threw yourself on screen as well, which is good to see.
Yeah. So I was a child actor in Australia. I went to ATYP and also studied at the Sydney Theatre Company, and that was kind of one of my first loves as well as writing. And so I've always kind of thought, in all of my short films, I've given myself a little role. So I thought I should carry on the tradition with my first feature. I'll have to speak to the TV series producers and see if they want to throw me in a character series as well.
Look, Jessica, you work, you write your own work, and also you work as an editor. Do writers and editors get the credit they deserve in the film industry?
Oh, absolutely not. But I think amongst the industry, yes. Like, I think maybe from the audiences, more and more, I think audiences are becoming really intelligent, really in tune with different writers and different editors. But really, I say there's three storytellers. You've got the writer, the director, and the editor. And there's many other tools like cinematography, like acting, like things like that, that are the tools to tell those stories. But really, writers and editors do deserve to be up there and as celebrated as much as directors are, and their names should be known as much, because the world can change completely in the edit room. And I'm really glad that I had my 10 years of editing experience before The Light of the Moon. It definitely makes, I think, for an independent director, when you only have 16 days to shoot a whole feature film, which is kind of obscene, you have very limited time and you have to make quick decisions. And luckily, because I was editing the film in my brain as I was shooting it, right, it definitely made it more seamless in that way. And I definitely, whatever young, people who are talking to me, my cousin at the moment is studying film and he's 21, and he said, what do you think I should do after uni? And I said, I really think you should get into editing. I think it's a great way to get into the industry and to also understand, writing, performance, directing. You get to see 20 takes, of a performance, and you really start to understand dramaturgy and pacing and all that. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful career, and I do think I agree with you that it needs to be acknowledged a little bit more. But I think more and more audiences are. I do feel like the fact that even my friends can mention some, writers' names to me, and so I just think it's amazing,
Well, look, I thought your film was amazing. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Rialto Channel is absolutely delighted to be playing The Light of the Moon. You can catch it on Friday, July 13th at 8:30 p.m. Thanks so much, Jessica, and good luck in Australia.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.